Masking in Photoshop is incredibly easy. It has incredible power and versatility to give you the images that you want. It'll enable you to use your images and adjustments on a micro level, in the sense that you will be able to apply these adjustments or corrections to just parts of the image. Hi, I'm Brendan Dias and welcome to my channel. This channel will enable you not only to learn Photoshop but also learn some concepts of image editing, which are very important and will help you in the long run. Many people are afraid of masking because they claim that it is complex. However, it is not so. Masking is pretty simple if you understand how it is done. We will go through this video in a very simple way so that you will be able to adapt to any kind of image editing and use your skill to generate fantastic pictures. So without much delay, let's get started. There are three kinds of masks available in Photoshop. One is called a layer mask, the other is a clipping mask, and the third one is a vector mask. You can download this image from the video description and you can work with me so that you can learn better. So we'll begin with layer masks. Now in Photoshop here we have a background layer which is locked, and what we want to do now is we want to see how to use a layer mask and how to manipulate just part of the image using a layer mask. So let's say, for example, we want to brighten up only the face. Okay. So in order to brighten up an image, we use the curves adjustment. If you drag up on that, okay, so notice now that the face has been brightened up, but along with the face, the rest of the image also has been brightened up. The reason being that we have the adjustment called curves 1 here, which has been applied to the entire image. The reason being we have this curves adjustment, the change that we have made has been applied to the entire image, because as you can see here on the curves layer, this is the curves adjustment, okay, and beside it here is the mask. It's called the layer mask, okay, because it applies to this specific layer called curves 1. So a white mask means that the effect will be applied. A black mask like this means that the effect, even though it's there, is not applied. So in this case, you can see we have applied an effect of brightening the image, but it's not being applied to this image because we have a black mask. So if you click on the mask or you double click on the mask, it will go into the properties for that mask, and in that you have a button called invert. So by using invert, we can either put the mask on or off. On is with white and off is with black. So in other words, anything on this mask that is white will apply, and anything on this mask that is black will not apply. So for example, we want to apply white on this mask in that area that will apply to this girl's face. So how do we do that? You simply take the brush, okay, make sure that you're using this black and white swatches here. If you don't have them on, if you have colors and you want to directly go and get the black and white swatches, you have to press the shortcut key D. Okay, so for example, if you had any other color there, okay, and you want to switch over to black and white, you simply press D on your keyboard, or you select this icon here, it will select black and white. So white is the foreground, black is the background here. So select white as your foreground color and make sure that your flow and opacity is 100%. Now we want to apply this curves adjustment that we made, this brightening, to only the face. So I am going to adjust the size of my brush by using the bracket keys. The left bracket is to reduce the size of the brush. The right bracket is used to increase the size of the brush. The right bracket key is used to increase the size of the brush. Okay, so I'm going to size the brush. Notice that all these parameters for the brush are here on top. So make sure that you have chosen normal, opacity 100, flow 100, and we are using a soft brush. That means the hardness is 0. Okay, so I come here to the area that I want this effect to be applied, and I simply paint. Make sure that I'm on the mask by clicking on it. Notice this white area around the mask showing that you have clicked on it and it is active right now. This is important. So once you are on the mask, now you go to the area that you want the effect to be applied and simply paint over it. Okay, I have exaggerated the effect here just to show you the difference, okay, as we paint in those areas. If there's any other area that you want to brighten up, you can simply paint in that area and it will brighten it up for you. Okay, so by using layer mask here, we have selectively applied this adjustment, this brightening adjustment that we use with curves, to only certain areas of the image. Now if you press the Option or Alt key and click on the mask thumbnail here, it will show you the areas you have painted. If you press Option Alt and click again on it, it will give you back the picture. Okay, so if you have made a mistake, so for example, let's say I've gone and made a mistake here and I've clicked and painted this area and I don't want this area, I could simply use the black brush from here, switch over to black by clicking on this arrow button here. The shortcut for that is X on the keyboard. It will switch between black and white here in this, that means the foreground and the background color. So once you choose black, you can simply use black and paint over that area. And if you're not sure whether you've covered those areas, you can use Alt or Option and click on the mask button and you can simply paint over the areas that you don't want. Okay, once done, press Option Alt and click again on the thumbnail of the mask. So this way now we are able to add some brightness to the girl's face, and if we go back to the properties of the curve here, we can reduce it so that it becomes a little more realistic. Okay, so if you press the Option key and click on the visibility icon for the background, it will put only that layer on. Okay, so this is before, this is the original picture without the adjustment, and this is after. This is the original picture with the adjustment using masking. So we've seen now how we are able to manipulate the mask for a particular adjustment. So now we'll see how to use masking with an image. So I'm going to put this layer off, or I'm going to delete it for simplicity. And I'm going to bring in a new image. So I'm going to File, Place Linked. Okay, and I'm going to place this image here. So now there's this image called flowers, and it's a separate layer above the background layer. So if you click on it, you see this is your image. Okay, now I want only part of this image. I don't want the whole image. So notice now there is no layer mask near this image on that layer. So in order to get the layer mask for that layer, you must first make sure that you have clicked on that layer. It is active. So notice it's highlighted when it's active. And then at the bottom here, there's an icon which says layer mask. So you can add a layer mask by simply clicking on this button, and it will give you a white layer mask. That means everything on that layer will be visible. If you double click on this mask, you will get the properties for that mask, and you have an invert button there. So if you click invert, it will make it black. So that means that particular image does not apply. Now the shortcut for inverting an image is Control or Command I. So once you've done that, now you can use the brush, make sure it's white as a foreground color, and the same options apply: normal, 100% flow, 100% opacity. And now you simply go to the areas where you want the flower and start painting. Okay, so let's say that's what we want, and that's it. So if you option click or alt click on the mask, it will show you the area that you have painted. If you missed out an area, you can simply paint over it, and you can correct the mask that way. Option alt click again, and here we are. Okay, now this is what you call a layer mask, and we've seen how to apply it with an adjustment, and we've seen how to apply it with an image as well. So in short, if for example, let's get rid of this image and let's take a color, a solid color. Okay. Notice this solid color has overlapped the entire image, and it has done so because we have a full white mask. If we double click on the mask and invert it, it's gone. So in short, simply what it simply means is that whatever layer you are on, it has a layer mask. If it does not have a layer mask, you can get one from down here by clicking this button, like we saw in the case of the image. When that mask is black, nothing is applied from that layer. In this case, on this layer there is a magenta color, but we're not seeing it now because of the black mask. So click on the mask, and wherever you want this magenta color to appear, you can simply paint with the brush, a white brush. Okay, you can make it small, and you can simply paint with your brush, and that color will be applied to that layer. So whatever is there on that layer will appear wherever you paint with white. Okay, I was giving you the full color because we have chosen the full flow. But if you just want part or like a transparency kind of effect, then we go and make the flow to something like 5%, depending on how transparent you want, and paint over the area. So as you keep painting over and over the area, it gets darker and darker using that color. So I'm painting with white on a black background, and whatever area I'm painting with white will reveal the color or image or whatever adjustment is there on that layer. In this case, it is magenta. So it is applying this color there. So simply by painting on that area, going over it with a low flow amount, like here, it will create this effect for you. Okay, similarly, okay, what if I want to make this girl's face brighter, but selectively, in the sense that I want to add on brightness as I keep painting. So I'm going to go to the curves layer, and I'm going to increase the brightness to a point. Okay, notice it applies to the entire image. We don't want that, so double click on the mask, click invert. It does not apply to anything. Now we take the brush with white, and we take a low flow like 5%. Make sure we have a big enough brush to cover the face. Okay, and now we simply paint. So as we paint with white, notice that the face will slowly start getting brighter. So if I put this layer off, this is before, after. So you can take any adjustment, any picture, anything like that, make the mask black and start painting with a low flow with white, and it will slowly reveal whatever is there on that layer. If it's curves or color or image or whatever it is, will be slowly revealed. Just to show you one more, if I take the black and white adjustment, double click on the mask, invert it, and now paint with white. Notice now I'm applying the black and white area selectively to that area. This is another way in which you can use layer masks. Okay, so as you can see, it's very dynamic. You can adjust only parts of your images and you can get the best possible result. So that was layer masks. So now we're now going to take a look at how to use clipping masks. What is a clipping mask? A clipping mask is nothing but a masking that is applied to the layer below. Okay, so far we have been taking a look at putting masking to the layer that we are working with. But if you want to mask according to the layer below, in other words, you want to use the layer that is below as a mask, okay, to reveal something, then this is what you do. Let's, for example, take a shape. We'll take an ellipse, and I'm using the shift key to get around a circle, and I'm going to draw an ellipse like this. Okay, so we have a layer which is called ellipse, and I'm going to position in such a way that it covers the girl's face. Yeah. Now I want to fill this circle with the girl's face. So what I have to do is I have to bring this ellipse layer below the background layer, or bring the background layer above the ellipse layer. If I try to do that, it's not happening because the background layer is locked. So open the lock by clicking on it, and now drag the girl layer above the ellipse layer. So as you can see now, the girl layer is above the ellipse layer. If I put the girl layer off, you can see the ellipse underneath. This is all that is there on this layer. This ellipse or this circle is all that is there on this layer. This checkout pattern that you see represents a blank area, or what you call a transparent area. So now we want to apply this picture, like take it and paste it over the layer that is below it. And what will get pasted is only what is contained on that layer. On this layer, we only have a circle. So when we do that, when we clip this layer to the previous layer, it will cover only that circle, nothing else, because that is all that is there on that layer. So in order to create a clipping mask, what you need to do is simply go in between the two layers, place your mouse pointer there, click on the Option or Alt button. So when you press the Option and Alt button, keep it pressed, you will get this arrow pointing down. So click with your mouse, and now it will apply whatever is there on that part of the layer to that ellipse, because we have clipped the layer above to the layer below. Okay, so that's called a clipping mask. Okay, so for example, now on this layer there's only a circle. Okay, if there was something else also on this layer, so if I rasterize this layer and I take the brush, I take white from here, okay, and I'm going to paint in this area. So I'm going to use a full flow and I'm going to paint. So notice now I'm just painting randomly, and this is what I have in this layer. So once I put the top layer on again, you can see now that it has covered those areas, because it always covers whatever is there below. So I'm on the layer below and I continue painting. Now as you can see, as I paint, I will reveal what is above, because this is how clipping masks work. Okay, so this is how you can create very dynamic pictures and can blend images very well in this way. All right, so this is how clipping masks work. Okay, now clipping mask, or you can clip anything to the previous layer. Okay, so that's how you do it. So let's do it once again. Let's go back. Okay, so let's take another shape. Okay, let's take a polygon and let's draw that. Okay, now this has to go below so that the girl's face comes over it. So we put the lock off on the background layer and put the background layer above that polygon layer. Press Option or Alt, click between the two layers, and you have your clipping mask. Okay. Now, if you click on the top layer and use the Move tool, you can reposition your picture in that polygon. Okay. If you want to move the polygon to a different place, you have to go to the previous layer below, and then using the Move tool, you can move the polygon. But you have to make sure that you put that top layer off, and then you move your polygon. And once you do that, you put the top layer on again, and then you can position it again. So this is how you can use clipping masks to create what you want. All right, so I'm going to the history panel and I'm going to the very top to start off with my original image. Okay, now let's take a look at how to create vector masks. Now, one very important point to note when creating vector masks is that you have to use the pen tool, number one. Number two is you have to make sure that path is selected for the object, so it has to be a path. Okay, and now using the pen tool, you draw. Okay, so I'm going to undo that, and we are going to start from here. So I'm just clicking randomly at the edge of the hat to create quickly just an outline of that hat. Okay, whatever is visible of the hat. So this is my path. So if I click anywhere on that path, that is, I right click anywhere on that path, I'll get an option to create a vector path. So notice now that I have created a vector path. All right, and now I can, the beauty of a vector path is you can manipulate that path. So for example, if I choose a curvature pen tool and click on that path, okay, here, notice I get a blue line. Now if I click there, I can round it up, and as I do that, you will see that it will now nicely take the contours of that particular hat. Right, so you will want to use a vector mask whenever you want to make sure that you have really sharp edges and you are able to manipulate these edges. It gives you the ability to manipulate these edges simply by using the pen tool. Okay, so if you're not good at painting, you could use this kind of option to manipulate the mask. So the beauty of a vector mask is that, let's say you want to use this mask with a bigger image. Okay, this mask is scalable. Okay, so for example, let's say you have this mask and you want to use it on another image which is bigger and you want to scale it accordingly. Okay, so when you click on the mask, you can press Ctrl T, that is transform. Okay, and you can now change the size of this mask. You see, the mask has been manipulated like this. So you can use it, and it maintains its shape because it's a vector. Okay, so it doesn't lose its shape in the resolution. It doesn't break off. It doesn't become pixelated. So that is the beauty of a vector mask. Okay. So I'm going to delete this, and we're going to start again. We'll do it again once more. Okay, so let's go to the original image. This time I'm going to duplicate the image. The command or control J. So I get a new image on top, and let's say we make another mask this time. Make a vector mask. So we'll go to pen, make sure path is selected, and roughly we will just go around the contours of this lady or this girl. Okay, so I'm going to roughly draw around something like that. This is just for learning, so we need not be exactly accurate. So now if I right click on any of this, I will create a vector mask. Notice now that this area in white over gray, this is how a vector mask looks like, and if you keep your mouse pointer there, it tells you vector mask thumbnail. Now you can go and manipulate this mask. So for example, the curvature pen tool, and we can manipulate it so that it looks perfect. I am not going to waste time here, but you know that this can be manipulated anytime. Okay, so once this is done, now what I want to do is I want to you want to apply a black and white effect to this vector mask. Okay, so I can simply go to black and white. Okay, and now I can take this vector mask and apply it to that particular layer. So I've taken it from the previous layer and applied it to the black and white layer. So now notice that even though the thumbnail, the vector mask, the layer mask is white, the vector mask is overruling it. Okay, so in other words, whatever is on the vector mask will be shown. So this is a black and white layer, and this is my vector mask. So if I click on it, now I can adjust this like this. You can keep working on it, and it will let you make the adjustments that you need. Okay, so here we are. So this is the beauty of using a vector mask. You can easily go and manipulate it whilst maintaining sharp edges all along, and it is also scalable. So it doesn't lose its definition, that is, it doesn't get pixelated when you resize that particular mask. So you can choose which kind of mask you want to work with. You have three options: layer mask, clipping mask, or a vector mask. So this is my image that I've opened up in Photoshop, and it is locked. The background is locked, so I'm going to unlock it, and I'm going to use only part of this image. So I'm going to move this image to the left. I'll hold the shift key so that it stays in place, and I'm going to move it a little to the left. I'm now going to take the next image, okay, and I'm going to drag and drop it on this image, and whilst dropping I'm going to press the shift key so it comes exactly in the middle. And now I can size this image. Okay, so let's reduce the opacity a bit so that we can take a look at the other image as well. And let's use the shift key and size this image by dragging on the border. So if you press command 0, you will be able to. So here I'm trying to get the head of this guy as the same size as the lady in the picture. Okay, somewhere close to the same size. So there we are, and I'm going to place his image at the side here. Okay, so I'm going to accept it by double clicking, and I'm going to put the opacity back to 100. Now we want only part of this image. All right, so let's now notice that these two images don't have any masking, or there's no layer mask available for either of these images. So we will add a layer mask simply by clicking on the add layer mask button here below, and here also. So you select the layer and then click on the add layer mask button, and that will add the layer mask for you. Now we want to hide part of this image. So I'm going to go to the marquee selection tool, and I'm just going to roughly mark this area. Okay, what I don't want, go to the mask, go to the edit menu, check fill, and fill it with black. Now we know from our previous discussion that when we fill a mask with black, it will not show what is in that area. Okay, now because it's not showing what is in that area, it is showing what is in the underlying area underneath the image. So whatever was there in the previous layer will be available. Now as we saw before, that when we uncover, when we hide part of that particular layer, it will not be seen, and whatever is underneath will be seen. So since the image of the girl was, or the lady was below, it came up to the front. Okay, so black part on a mask is like a hole. Okay, so you can see through it. Right, so now we have part of the lady and part of the guy. Okay, now if you want to select a white part of a mask, you can simply press Ctrl and click on the mask. It will select that area for you. Okay, so as you can see here, now the area that has been selected. Okay, now notice when a selection is made, you can press the Q key on your keyboard. This is called quick mask mode, and it will show you a color indicating what is being selected. If you are not sure, you can come down here just below the foreground and background color. There is this icon which is called the quick mask icon. So if you double click on it, you can select what the color represents. Okay, so I'm saying the color should represent selected areas, and the color we have chosen is red. If you want another color, you can select another color and click OK. So that the selection will be indicated by that color. So pressing Q again will just hide that color, but the selection is still there. So anytime you're not sure what you have selected, you can simply press Q and Q again to show what area has been selected. So now this guy has been selected, and we want the inverse of this. It means we don't want this. So we right click. So make sure that you have the marquee button selected here, and right click on it and say select inverse, or you could also go to the select menu and choose select inverse. So now it will select the other half, that is the part which is not being displayed, and we want to use this selection, okay, in order to make this layer only with this part of the layer that is below visible. Okay, so since it is already in white, okay, if I fill it with black, what will happen? That area from that layer, that girl, has disappeared because we have painted that area black. But we don't want that. We've done just the opposite. Okay, so I've deliberately done that to show you how to work with layers. So since we want the opposite of this layer, what we have to do is we have to invert this mask. Okay, what is white we want to make black, and what is black we want to make white. So in order to do that, simply click on the layer mask and press Control I, or Control or Command I. Okay, so that will invert the layer. So now as we can see, if I put the top layer off, you can see that on the bottom layer we have only this lady there, which is being visible. And on the right hand side we have the guy visible, because if we put the lady layer off, you'll see that only that person is there. Okay, now we don't want the sharp line in between, and we want to make sure that it's being blended properly. Okay, so what we can do is we can come to this layer mask here. Okay, and on this edge we will paint with white. Okay, full flow, 100% opacity, 100% flow, and mode is normal. We are using a soft brush, hardness is 0. Okay, and I'm simply going to paint. Now as you can see, my brush is very small, so I'm going to make it large, and then I'm going to paint like this. Okay, so as you can see now, we've got that. Okay, and if you feel that you made a mistake, you can go to black and you can paint out the area that you don't want. Okay, now whilst painting on this, see, I'm on the mask layer 1 mask, which has the man there, and I have painted out the man in the sense that I've made that area black. So that is the mistake I made. Okay, so what I'm going to do is once again change to white and paint over that area with white. I'm going to make a big brush so it gets a very soft feel like this. Okay, and I'm going to go to the lady layer, the one below, and I'm going to change my brush size, and I'm going to paint again with, I have to make sure, see, I've painted now on the thumbnail. Whenever you're painting, you have to make sure that you have selected the thumbnail first. So I'm going to undo, select the layer mask, and then you paint. Okay, so nothing seems to be happening. Okay, so why is that? Okay, that is because this layer is overshadowing this one. Okay, now I've deliberately gone into doing this so to show you the kind of frustration that people encounter when working with masks. So I'm on the right layer now, on the layer mask for the man, and I'm going to remove certain part of it. Okay, and I'm going to go back there to that same layer, change over to a white brush. Okay, see, it's white, and I'm going to paint over that. Okay, going back to the girl layer, and I'm going to reveal that. So remember, since the guy layer is above, it will dominate. So if you feel something is not happening properly, you may want to look at the layer which is above, because that layer dominates the scene. Okay, so I'm going to bring this here like this. I'm painting it now here like this. Okay, so when you are on a layer mask, if you press the backslash key, it will show you what is being revealed from that area, and what is not being revealed will be shown in another color like red. So if I go to the girl layer, the lady layer, down there on that layer mask, and press backslash, it will show you what is being revealed from that layer. Okay, so it's a toggle, so if you press it once more, it will be put off. So here is a kind of blend of the image that I was looking for, and there's a slight distraction here, so I'll go to the girl layer, and I'm going to use the remove tool, and I'm going to remove that distraction from there. Alright, so now we have a nice blend of images, and what we want to do now is add the word wedding here, and thereafter add the 2 rings here. Okay, but in order to add the text, which will be in white, notice that all this lady's dress and the shirt, etc., are all white, and we want to have a kind of dark patch. All right, so what you can do is you can select this area, okay, and you can fill it with black. So edit, fill with black, okay, and you notice that because I was on that lady layer and I tried to paint with black, I got this effect because of this layer mask, which is only showing that area, and I've accidentally drawn over that lady, that photo of the lady. So that's a mistake. So I'm going to undo. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I have a brand new blank layer by clicking on this plus button here for a new layer, and now I'm going to fill it with black. Okay, now this layer, as you can see, it looks very odd with a black patch here, and we want it to be of a different opacity. So I'm going to change the opacity to something like 60%, and it still has a very sharp line here. Okay, now there are two ways to handle this situation. We could get rid of this layer and use a gradient, or we could still use this layer, but if I press Ctrl and click on this layer, notice there's no layer mask, and the only thing that is there on this layer, layer number 2, is that black bar. Okay, so I'm going to call this black bar. Okay, so this black bar layer, it doesn't have a layer mask. So what you can do is, whenever you want to make a selection of what is on that layer, notice now on this layer there is only this black bar. Okay, and I'm going to change opacity back to 100%. So you can see that this layer only has this black bar. So if I press Ctrl and click on the thumbnail, it will only select what is there on that. See, the other thing is transparent, so it has only selected this bar. And now, whilst I'm on the black bar layer, I can click layer mask. So notice now it has created a layer mask. The white part is the layer mask, but that is revealing what is there on that layer. Now what I want to do is I want to go to the properties of this layer mask, and I'm going to feather it. So notice now, after feathering, it is still very sharp. If I put the other things on, notice that even after feathering, it is sharp. So it's not giving me the right response or the right effect that I want. So I'm going to get rid of this layer, and instead of this, I'm going to use a gradient layer. Okay, there are two types of gradients now, the gradient and classic gradient. For classic gradient, you'll have to use a new layer, and then you go here and choose what you want. So we want to have the foreground color, that is black. Okay, so I'm going to change from black, so black to transparent, this one. Okay, the foreground color is black, so foreground to transparent. Click OK. So foreground to transparent, that is the way we go, and we want to use a linear gradient. Okay, so I'm going to draw a gradient like this, and this is what we get. Now notice it's very sharp. We don't want that, so Ctrl Z, and we start outside the image and then move inside using Shift so it comes straight. And now we have something better, but still not there. So Ctrl Z, and let's try one more. We come a little closer, and this is better, but not there. So I'm going to do that. Okay, but we're getting a full black patch. So what we'll do is we will start outside again till here. Okay, and to increase the effect, we will just duplicate this layer like that. So I've made 4 copies. You can select all the layers, click on the first one, shift click on the last one, and press Command or Control E. It will merge them all into one. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to add the word wedding. So I'm going to go to the text, horizontal text tool, and I'm going to type in wedding. All right, and I'm going to double click on it, and here I'm going to increase the size of the text, and I'm going to reposition it somewhere here. All right, and I will double click and change the color to white. All right, so far so good. We've got the title here, and now we are going to bring in the two rings which are there. So we are going to bring in these two rings and dump them onto, so accept and accept, and now we've got these two rings. Okay, now the thing is that we want these rings to intersect. Okay, so what we'll do is, I'm going to zoom into, and as you can see now, these two rings have to intersect. Okay, so this one will be behind and this one will be on top of it. Okay, so I'm going to bring it on top. Okay, now we want it such that we want it something like this, where we want to show them interlaced. That means one inside the other. So what we have to do is simply remove this part of this ring here. Okay, so what we do is we go to the layer that has that ring. So if I put it on and off, you can see that that is the layer, ring number 1, which has to be modified. Notice now that is the only thing. If I press option and click on that visibility icon, it shows me what is on that layer. So it's only that ring that is there, but it does not have a layer mask. So in order to have masking operations, we must have a layer mask. So we'll add a layer mask by using this icon here. All right, and on this layer mask, we're going to paint this area with black. On this layer mask, we're going to paint this area with black, so it will not reveal it. Okay, now in order to paint accurately, we want to paint along the contours of the ring which is below. We want to use the contours of the ring which is below. So I'm going to press Control or Command and click on the ring that is below. Notice now I get a selection of that area. Now with that area selected, okay, whenever you paint and if there's an area selected, it will only paint in the selected area. So what we want to do now is we want to go to that ring which is up there, ring number 1, go to the layer mask of that ring, take the brush, make sure it is black, 100% flow, 100% opacity, normal. Make sure your brush is small enough, so use the left bracket or the right bracket key to increase or decrease the size of your brush. Okay, so once it is small enough, as you can see here, I am going to paint within the contours of this green area, which is the selection. Okay, and we got that selection by command clicking on the previous ring layer. So now what I need to do is I need to go to the layer mask of ring number 1, because that is where we want to make the adjustment for the layer, and paint with black. Now as you can see, because we made the selection, it was very easy and we got an accurate marking. Okay, so if I press Command D now to deselect and I zoom out, you can now see that the rings are interlaced. So what is being shown on the ring number 2, the one below is this, and the one above is this. As you can see, because we have painted that area in black, it is not showing that part of the ring, and when the ring from below comes in, it seems like both are intertwined or interlinked. So fine, now we've put all the other layers on. And if we look at our image, we've got a nice interlaced rings, which we are going to now put here between these two D's, okay, and also do the same kind of effect so that the letter also gets entangled with that. So the first thing we need to do is make a group of these two layers. So ring number 2 and ring number 1, if you press shift and click on both, they will be selected, and you can make a group of them by dragging these two layers to this folder icon at the bottom, or you can select the two layers and press Ctrl or Command G. So now this is the rings. I'm going to call it rings, okay, and if you put it off and on, you can see that that is the layer. Now I can move them in place, okay, like this, okay, and I'm going to make it a little bigger. So I'm pressing Ctrl T and I'm going to size them so that they get a little bigger, okay. Now what we want to do is the second D, we want it to overlap this ring, okay. Now this second D is here at the bottom, okay, that is the wedding text. So what we do is on the rings layer, we put a new layer mask, okay. Nothing has happened so far, we've just got a new layer mask. Now we want to paint this area which has the D in it, okay. So, and we want a selection of that. So remember that when you want a selection of anything, you must go to that layer which has it and press Control and click on that, or Control or Command and click on that layer. Notice now it has selected the word wedding, and we are going to paint that area, okay, as black on the mask for the rings. So this is the rings mask. We come here, okay, we still have our selection. All we need to do now is take the black brush, make sure it's 100% flow, opacity and normal, and paint that area, okay. So what has happened is, it seems like now if I press Control or Command D, okay, we didn't do it properly. Let's go back and make sure that this slight area with black, we have to paint it again with white, sorry. So change over to white and paint this area on that mask, okay, so that it gets removed. So now it's pretty sharp. We just want that area of the D to be shown. So if we zoom out now, press Command or Control D, so now it would seem like the ring is overlapping the previous D and is under the next D. Okay. So we have a nice effect, and we have achieved this effect by using layer mask to hide certain part of the areas and to create an effect like this. So this is how you can use layer masks very advantageously to create a composite image like this. So maybe for a wedding album or something like that, and it can be quite effective. So this time let's make another image using blending with layer masks so that you get some more practice and see how to use layer masks in order to blend images. So I've got my first image here, and I'm going to drag and drop the other image, okay, and I'm going to size it using the shift key, and let's say I want it here, okay, and finally I want the third image which I can place here, okay, so somewhere here. So I'm going to size it, and we would like to place it here, okay. Now we want to blend these images so that we can use these images appropriately, okay. So what we're going to do is, first just put this top layer off, and we are going to add a layer mask to this girl layer, and we are going to use black, opacity 100, flow 100, normal, soft brush, and we are going to paint away on the mask. Okay, so make sure that you're on the mask for that layer and then paint away with black. So I'm going to make the brush big enough and then just paint around like this. Okay. So notice all that is gone and we just have a faint image of the girl. And if you want it to be better, use white and click once more on that. Okay, now we don't want those edges, so I'm going to go to the edges, use black and paint it out. Okay, going to paint on those edges there. We don't want to see those square edges. Okay, and we don't want this white and red part overlapping so much, so I'm going to go back to the girl image, take white and reveal that part. Okay, now I'm going to take a bigger brush and brush again. This time we've got the edges, so let's take black and use that there. That's better. So now we've got a relatively good blend of these images, and we don't want this sharp aspect here, so we're going to paint over it with white, and here as well. So you can keep shifting between black and white by using the X button, and you can reveal or conceal whichever part you want to work with. Alright, so we've got this much of the image. So now we go to the top image and we do the same thing, but this time we want an accurate cut of this flower. So whilst on this flower image, okay, I'm going to go to select and choose subject. Okay, so it has selected the top part of the flower, but we also want the rest of it. Okay, so apparently select subject did not work well, so I'm going to press Command or Control D, and I'm going to go to the object selection tool, make sure the loop is selected or lasso is selected, and I'm roughly going to draw around this flower, so indicating that that is the area that I want to work with. So here we have now the flower selected. So once you have a selection, when you press the layer mask button, it will use that selection to create a mask. Okay. So notice everything else has disappeared and only what we have selected is in place. Okay. So now you can either leave this like this, or if you want to blend it further, you could maybe reduce the opacity of it so the texture that is behind also comes into it. The same thing with the girl. If you reduce the texture a bit, it will blend better. The opacity a bit, it will blend better. So as you can see now, we have a good picture here. Okay. Right. So we will make this full because you're getting part of the image coming from behind. So we'll keep it full. And this opacity for this one, we can maybe increase it a bit. That's it. Alright, so what we want to do now, since we've got this the picture of the flower, and we want to just soften the edges a bit. So what we can do is we could simply take a black brush. Okay, we reduce the flow to maybe something like 10, and normal brush, and we come to the edge. Okay, and make sure you have black, make sure you are on the layer mask for the flower, and we are going to paint. So notice as you keep painting over that edge, it will blur out that. So if you feel that you want to use less strokes whilst painting on it, okay, so you can even use full flow and then paint over it. So notice as you keep going over the edge, now notice the size of my brush is the smaller circle inside. Okay, the green one is just for helping you to see the image, the cursor. So there you go. So I've just worked on the top part of the flower and you can see that it has blended well. Okay, so if you feel you need to do more, you can make the size of the brush bigger and simply paint over the edge. See, the white part of the brush is over the edge. So simply paint with full flow over the edge and you will be able to blend the flower better. Okay. So this is how you can work with different images and blend them together using masking. Okay. So remember these basic operations with masks. Number one is when you want to create a mask, all right. So if I make a duplicate of this layer, if you want to create a layer mask, you have to click on this create layer mask button. It will create a layer mask for you. If you press Ctrl I, it will invert that mask. See, I've put the background off and I've kept this new background on, but I've put a black mask on it, so it's not showing. So if I click on it and press Ctrl I, it will show that layer again because now the full mask is white. So remember, Ctrl I is to invert the mask. If you want to temporarily put the mask off, you press Shift and click on it. The mask will be disabled. Remember, when there is no mask, whenever there's no mask is as good as a mask with full white. So there's no effect here, as you can see. But if I put this mask off on this girl, you can see that it shows the full picture. So shift click again and the mask will reveal again. So same thing here, shift click, click. Okay, so shift clicking on the mask will either reveal or hide that mask. Okay, and the final operation is when you press Control and you click on a mask, it will select that mask. That means it will make a selection of whatever is white on that mask. So if I press Control and click on this, it will select that shape there that is there on the mask there. Similarly, if I press Control and click on this, it will show you the selection we did for the girl. Okay. Suppose you want to combine both this girl and the flower, the selections for the girl and the flower which are on the masks. So what you need to do is select one by pressing Control and clicking on one, then keeping the Control key pressed, press the Shift key as well. Okay, so Command Shift or Control Shift and click on the other one. So now it will merge both those selections together for you. Okay. So these are basic mask operations which you can use to create very dynamic pictures going ahead. Now if you wanted to add a texture, okay, let's say on this girl itself. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll press Ctrl D to deselect. And I'm just going to make a duplicate of this layer so that we can just test something on it. Now notice this layer mask has got all this area in white. Okay. Now if I want to add an effect to this, like a pattern to this area which is selected, what I can simply do is come here and click on this layer mask, and I can go to edit and choose fill. Now remember, whatever you do on a layer mask will always be black and white. So we're going to choose a pattern, and we're going to choose this brick wall pattern, okay, or any pattern that you have in your list here, and click OK. Notice now what it has done is it has created this pattern on the layer mask. So the selection that we had has gone. So I'm going to undo, and this time I'm going to press Control and click on that. So whatever we add now will only be added to this space, and we go to edit and choose fill, choose pattern, choose the pattern you want, okay, whatever you like, click OK. Now notice it has applied only to that area. So remember that whatever you add onto masks will always be black and white. So even though this picture was colored, it has been converted to black and white. Okay, so here we are. So I press Option and click again on this. Option click, and we are back to our picture. Right. So if I put the previous layer on again, you see that it has overridden that particular area. Okay, so this is the new one and this is the old one. Let's look at one more way in which you can work with masks. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this layer, right, and just to show you how you can manipulate this image using masks. Okay, so I'm going to click on the Add Layer Mask button. Okay, this is my image, and I'm going to click on the mask, and I'm going to go to image, and I'm going to say apply image. Okay, you use all the basic things here: merged, RGB, multiply, 100%, and click OK. Notice now your mask has become a black and white version of your image. So if I option click on it, see, this is what your mask looks like. Okay, it's a black and white version of this image. Now if you want to work with this image, for example, what you can do is, let's take a practical examples. Let's knock this off, and this time we'll use an adjustment like curves, and let's say we want to brighten up only the bright parts of this image. Okay, so what we can do is, one way to do it is to click on the layer mask, go to image and choose apply image, use the same parameters, merged, RGB, multiply, 100, and now if you look at your layer mask, it's showing you the black and white version of the image. In other words, whatever is white here will be manipulated, whatever is black will be left as it is. Now in order to give it a better effect, okay, what we can do is we can option click on the mask so that we see it and press Ctrl L. Okay, now Control L or Command L will give you the levels adjustment, but this level adjustment will work directly on this image. So it's a destructive format. Okay, it's not a layer, a separate operation. So we are going to bring in the whites like this. So notice the whites are getting brighter and the blacks we want to make it darker. Okay, I'm going to adjust it in a way in which those areas which I want to work with are all white and the ones I don't want to work with are black. Click OK, and if there is any area you don't want to work with, you can simply take the black brush, 100% opacity and flow, and paint on it. Okay, so what will happen is we don't want that. And instead of going and painting everything, what you can do is use the lasso tool and roughly draw around the area that you don't want to affect, Okay, let's say we don't want to affect his face also, like this, and go to edit, fill with black. Okay, press Command D, and now with the brush just paint out those areas that you don't want. We don't want to affect these areas, so I'm going to paint it black. So in other words, what is going to be affected is only these flowers that are behind. Okay, so I'm going to paint that out. So option click again on the mask. So now we have a curves adjustment here. So as we notice that nothing happens to the other part, which is black, but only what is white. So like this, we can selectively modify parts of the image by using something like this, like a ready-made mask that we got using apply image. Similarly, if you wanted to work only with dark areas, okay, so we can, I'm going to put that layer off, and I'm going to take a new curves layer. I'm going to click on the mask, and I'm going to say apply image. This time I'll choose invert and click OK. So if you look at your mask now, you will see that the dark areas are white and the white areas are black. So this is a negative. So now I could go here and I could increase the brightness in the dark areas. This is only affecting the dark areas. Okay. So you could use masking like this also. And yet another way to use masking is by using channels. So if you click on the channels panel here, if you don't see it, you can find it in Windows channels. So go to the channels panel and click on red. So now it is showing you a representation of your picture in the red channel. Okay. So as you can see, it has got the maximum contrast. You click on the green channel, it is not so black and white, it is more gray and white. And the blue channel is even worse. It is more gray, less black, less white. So if you want a nice sharp contrast, you could use this, and you could use this as a mask, or what we call as a alpha mask. So if you want a selection of what is there on this channel, all you need to do is press Control and click on this channel, and it will make a selection of the bright areas in this channel. I repeat, it will make a selection of the bright areas in this channel. As you can see, all the bright areas in this channel have been selected. And now I can go to layers. So go to channels and make sure that you have put RGB on. Notice my selection is still there. I go to layers, and let's say I take a solid color layer. Okay. So notice now that it has taken all the bright areas in the image. See, the dark areas are not affected at all, very slightly. That is because of the mask that has been picked up from the red channel. And now you can add colors to it as you want, according to what you want to make out of this picture. Click OK. Okay, notice that this yellow is being applied according to the white in this mask. If I press option click on the mask, this is what the mask is. So if I press Ctrl L, that means levels on this mask, and I darken the darks. So notice now the yellow will not apply to these dark areas. Click OK, option click again. Notice the dark areas are not affected by that yellow. So you could also use masking in this way. This is a little advanced form of masking, and you can basically use it dynamically like this. So if I change this color to maybe red, and now if we option click on the mask, okay, I want to show you one last operation with working with the brush. Okay, if you change the mode to overlay, okay, now the color I have chosen here is white, What the overlay brush does is, whatever you paint on, so my current color is white, okay, so it makes whites whiter, or it makes grays whiter. Okay, so notice now here in this plant, if I paint on it, I'm painting on the black also, but is anything happening? Nothing is happening on the black, even though I'm painting on white. That is because we are using the overlay button. But anything that is gray will be affected on that. So as you can see now, all the gray areas are being affected. So I'm going to paint this. Notice it's a big brush, but it's not going outside the selection of the flower because the outside is black. Okay. Similarly, I could paint on this guy's shirt. It won't affect the black parts, but it will make the gray parts white. So this is the overlay brush. It works like magic. Similarly, if there are dark parts and you want to make them darker, so change over to black as a foreground color and paint over the gray areas. They will become black, but it will not touch the white areas. You see, even though I'm painting over the white areas, it's not doing anything. So now if I press Option and click on this, notice that it has affected that area in the mask. Okay. So in short, anything that is white will be revealed, anything that is black will be concealed. Okay. So we are not seeing the difference here because of the background layer, but if I put the background layer off, you can see that only these white parts of the image are being shown here. So if I put another color layer below, like black, now I've got a very stylized kind of look, which will be very difficult otherwise to get. Okay, so here is a way in which you can work with mask and to get what you want. So there are lots of more features that you can use for masking. So for example, if I am on this mask, I option click on this and I go to filter, choose render, and I choose clouds. Notice it has given me something like this. Okay, and if I use filter, render, difference clouds, it gives me something like this. If I press Ctrl L or Command L, now I will darken the black parts. I'll keep all the white parts up, and let's say I accept this and click on this. So now I've got this pattern over black, and I can keep changing the colors as I need. I want a white background and I want a different color there. So it becomes very dynamic. You can keep creating textures and stuff like that. All right, so here's another trick you can use. So I'm going to select all this and delete. I'm going to make a solid color white background. Okay, and I'm going to duplicate this 2-3 times. Okay, I'm going to invert this layer. I'm going to invert this, and invert this. Okay, so now I'm going to change these colors. I'm going to choose some random colors here, just so that we can work with them. Okay, and now I want to fill certain areas of this picture with that color. So for example, I could use an ellipse tool, select a circle like this, and I can go to the mask of that color and simply press Alt and backspace, or Alt and delete. Okay, now my current color should be white, so Option or Alt and delete, or Option Alt and backspace, and it will fill that area with white. and because we have used white, it is showing that color. So similarly, if I take another part like this on the purple layer and do the same thing, option delete or option alt delete or option backspace, you'll get the colors that you want there. Similarly, I'm going to select that area, fill that area on this, and fill this entire area with, so I'm going to invert this and fill this with white. Now all these can be blended together. So for example, I come here and click on the background and feather it. You see, same thing here, feather this one, same thing here, feather this one. So you can use masking like this also to create different diffused backgrounds with different shapes and to create some artwork that you need for your presentations or whatever. So this wraps up our discussion on masking. Of course, there is more to masking, but this will get you started. So this will help you to work with a lot of images going forward.